I don't like to discuss myself.
This is kind of like the theme for this closing video, which is 5 things we learned this year. Some more useful, some less. But maybe the most useful one starts in January 2023 with Wodapalooza, because we had a really big team going to Miami that year.
You can tell me like...
Maybe we went to sleep Saturday night or woke up Sunday morning and John's like, hey guys, we've got a problem. That's how we found out that we were supposed to leave the Airbnb on Sunday morning and not Monday morning. So lesson number 1 for everyone is double check when you book your Airbnbs that you got the right dates.
Dates are important.
Yeah. But overall, if we close an eye over that and kind of last minute scrambling, I think it was a great way to start the year. Wodapalooza is a great community event, but it was also great to have like so many athletes from all over the world that do the program come in and like meet and interact. And then, the big event for the season is semifinals.
We are in Berlin. I don't like to discuss myself.
This year, semi-finals very much was a bit different. It brought Europe all back together, as we all know. So you had, you went for 5 years or so, we'd had Europe separate. It brought everyone back together, which was really nice, and brought everyone into Berlin. And we obviously have a lot of our athletes are semi-final level athletes, and with that comes the ambition to make it through to the game. So that's like a lot of the ambition of not everyone at semi-finals, but a fairly large percentage of people there want to be able to punch that ticket.
Among them, we have those that you expect to see at games, and then there's like the newcomers or what we'd call the bubble athletes. And one of these bubble athletes that we know very well, we've known for a long time. We also call her the silent assassin for a reason. Ella, who was a rookie at the games this year.
Yeah, I think the nickname of silent assassin is very appropriate for Ella, and that idea of just going in and doing what she can do was really good. It's like there's a reason why in horse races they kind of put the blinkers on the horses, so they can just be focused on what they're doing, not have to worry about anyone else. And I think that's really what Ella demonstrated really well. She was there doing her thing, and her thing was good enough this year to take her to the games, and that's a lifetime achievement for her. As you said, we've known Ella since she was 18 years old. And I don't think she's necessarily been on many people's radar because she is the silent assassin. And so it's, I think, a really nice example, as you said, of just focusing on what you're doing and focusing on your lane. And Ella exemplified that at semi-finals.
With 476 points,
that self-belief is very important. You do have to believe in yourself, and I think that's a little bit of the similar concept, that if you're just focused on you because you believe in yourself, you're not worried about what everyone else is doing. And it is true. A lot of athletes suffer with this kind of self-doubt, this feeling of imposter syndrome, that they're not good enough to be there. And so I think if you can start to get over that hurdle and build that confidence, build that self-belief, it's something that can really help you in every endeavor, not just on the competition field.
Well beyond sport. We had another repeat athlete that instead qualified for his second year at the games, and also his second year at the games with us. And that's everyone's favorite German athlete, Moritz.
Yeah, so Moritz definitely not the silent assassin. He's definitely more on the main stage. and he lifts big weights. He likes to be there. I mean, and the one thing with Moritz is his improvement from last year to this year is huge. He's become a lot more of a rounded athlete. He's always been strong, but building out those weaknesses that he may have. But I think one thing that's really important with Moritz is being able to, he's been able to focus on the process. So a lot of times, like, people can get very much caught up in this external goal. I want to be here. I want to be able to do this. But the reality is that we're just not in control of a lot of those factors. The one thing that you can be in control of is, going to the gym, reducing work, sleeping. All of these, they seem like mundane things, but they do build. If you do this day after day, week after week, month after month, the improvements that you can make are pretty phenomenal. And Moritz made some choices last year to reduce work, to reduce stresses, and I think that's been a big factor, is just being able to hone in on the daily process rather than worry so much about the outcome.
Big goal for a lot of athletes is to make top 20 at the games, and Moritz came extremely short of that, and it's even more important now because of the cuts. But when you look at the performance from this year to last year, and the work that went into that, it's actually really impressive. He had almost all top 10 finishes at games, and just the improvement from last year, making it through the first round of cuts, and it really looked like a different athlete on the floor. It's not fair to miss out on being proud of yourself and your work because you didn't achieve placement.
So I think your point about being able to reflect on how far you've come rather than how far you've got to go is something, again, that's really important for people to be able to do. Because if you're constantly looking, there's the concept of the gap and the gain, and if you're constantly working in the gap of I've got to do this, I've got to go this far, I didn't make it far enough, you're just putting yourself in this negative. Whereas actually being able to look at what you have achieved, it can kind of flip. It doesn't affect the outcome in any way, but it can make you a little bit happier because you see those steps you've taken.
Something else kind of changed besides our 2 games athletes going to games this year, and something that you recently announced during the Dubai period.
Yeah, so it's something that I'm actually fairly comfortable with, and I can understand how it's a weird situation. The dynamic is Jack has been on board with the program for 7 years now, which is a long amount of time. We are obviously in a relationship, and now she's moving on to another training program, which I obviously understand how people kind of look at that and go, okay, that's a strange situation. The thing is, from my point of view, is I just wanted what's best for the athletes. That's kind of the fundamental principle. I'm a big believer in being able to explore boundaries and being able to push things a little bit more. And so, even though what we're doing is working, I'm very interested to see, okay, if she can be put in a new environment, actually, can that instill another layer of ability of where she's got to go? And I think the important caveat here is it's not something that's happening after every year, just change. It's actually something that's for 7 years this process has been going on, and I think that the process has happened in a supportive way, in the sense that I've had conversations with hard work pays off, and I'm in direct contact with Jake as well to be able to support that crossover for Jacqueline, and so the idea is this the best move for her? And I felt it was, and so I was the one who initiated things for that reason.
Of course, you have to be very careful with that because, as you mentioned, changing your coaching program every year is probably not the best solution. But even if you're seeing growth, talking with people around you and considering if this is a reasonable solution can sometimes, be that extra thing that you need, especially when we're talking about an elite athlete that's been, been a pro for so many years.
And I think actually one of the troubles in CrossFit is people switch around way too much. They don't give the opportunity for the roots to grow, for things to settle, and for that to establish, and then being able to make an informed decision about where they want to go. Often the time it's very reactive, and I would argue this was kind of like a proactive rather than a reactive decision that we made. I think the worst thing probably is like people making decisions off bad results straight away. That reactive kind of thinking. Again, it's because you've kind of looked at this outcome result rather than looking kind of internally. Did things go well day to day, etc. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm pretty proud of saying at the program we really work for the athlete, and being able to acknowledge that maybe this environment, for whatever reason, is not serving you in the way that it can. And if we cannot, 100% come into, your direction, help you out, we can explore other options. So it's really about, first serving the athlete and then business, let's call it that way. But I think at the end of the day, when you kind of go back and reflect on like how things are changing, I think the teen camps are a great way to see that, because they really showcase like the talent pool. Because the more a sport grows in popularity, the bigger the talent pool will be, and the bigger more interesting athletes you'll get to see. So I think it's a nice point to reflect on.
Over 100 athletes have been through the teen camps over all these years now. And I think, coming to your point about the talent and things improving, is that arguably each year the bottom level of the athletes is higher because they've had more exposure to CrossFit.
Kids like going to camps these days are like have been doing CrossFit for like 4 or 5 years. They started doing CrossFit when they were 13. So that's a huge change in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I think also the mindset as well, like a lot of athletes, they want to be full-time CrossFit athletes. They've seen Tia, they've seen Fraser, they've seen the greats of the sport, and they don't want to do any other sport. Their sport is CrossFit.
But to go back and just see how much this sport is impacting, especially younger and maybe older people in a certain sense, with masters, but also like younger generations growing up with being strong and fit, and seeing that progress through the years is encouraging. What is how do we want to serve, and how do we want to live this process with our community and with our athletes over like what our next goals are? Who do we want to take to the games and all that stuff?
Yeah, so one of our goals is being able to do a great job for our community, for athletes on board, and a part of that is understanding the process. That each day we're speaking to them, providing there and being present. And again, this kind of like thought process of if we can be there each day, if we can support them each day, then actually that builds over weeks, that builds over months, that builds over years to support that environment. And there's also certain things like I think one of the biggest changes that we've made in the last 18 months is really building out a structure in our team. I'm really trying to reflect on like, actually, am I doing a great job in this moment? And that's kind of the stopping point of the thought process. Am I doing a great job in this moment? And it's not like, actually, I've got to get to here, so I'm going to run as fast as I can in that goal. And so a part of my journey, which gets reflected in the company and through the business, is like, actually, how can we do a great job day to day? And that's where it kind of stops, and being less focused on this, like in 2024 we want to have X, Y, and Z. We're kind of going to let the outcome worry about itself, and we're going to be very much focused in the present on doing what we can do well.